I look at my bunk, and they had taken all my letters, and this is one of the most pivotal moments in my life. Pivotal. This is life-changing. So there's all my letters that I've been getting from my girlfriend, a couple of friends, and my grandparents. And they put them on my bunk and took a mop bucket filled with dirty mop water and dumped. And by the way, it was late winter there. It was like March, so it's still like 20 degrees outside. And it was cold down there in the hole. They dumped mop water all, and my pictures. I had a packet of pictures, maybe like 20 pictures. I told my girlfriend, send me those pictures. Those are going to give me hope. Because my girlfriend was even saying, I used to tell her, listen, if I ever get more than 5 years in prison, I'm just killing myself. There's no way I'm going to do 5 years in prison. And she kept saying, don't kill yourself. Don't kill yourself. You got this. And I'm like, we'll see what they're trying to give me. And I said, send me those pictures. They can give me hope. There's pictures of me deer hunting, fishing, picnics with my girlfriend, playing with my dog and cat, my cars and everything. Just nostalgic pictures. I wanted them to give me hope. And so I just thought of something that's crazy if I can remember. They threw the pictures and my letters on the bunk, dumped the mop water all over it, and left it. So when I go to sit down, I'm out of breath because they just jumped me, and blood's trickling down, dripping down. Got a couple gashes in my head, dripping off my ear, dripping off my nose. And I realize my bunk is wet, and I look over and see all my pictures and letters are all wet. And I'm like, those slimy, dirty mother effers, man. Just scumbags. And then I said to myself, I can't do this, man. I can't do this. I don't want to do it. There's no way I'm going to do 30 years like this, man. For what? Come home in 30 years to no one, no family, no money, no skills, nothing? No, man, it ain't worth it, man. And I was thinking to myself, I've never been afraid to die. And I put myself in life and death situations many times. And I just told you some earlier. I didn't care about dying because I didn't think my life had any value. So I said, just let it go, man. Slit your wrist in the shower and just check out. They give you so I start planning this, right? I start planning how I'm going to do it. Once a week, they gave you a razor, and you can go shave in the shower. When you get an hour out every day, you need to take a shower. So I said, I'll bust that razor open and use the razor to slit my wrist, both wrists, and I'll just sit down in the shower and kind of pray and just say, God, I'm coming to join you. So that was my plan. Now, what happened next was spiritual on a level that I can't explain. I don't have words. Now, I have heard these testimonies. I listen to them all the time, a lot recently, where people say they had a vision or a dream, or they heard God's voice or someone's voice. And then you hear some that say, I didn't hear any voice, but I heard a voice. That was me. I didn't hear God's voice, like, oh, I want you to, but it was a voice, his voice. And he said, I don't want to get choked up. The voice said, you can make it. I'll protect you. You can get through this. There's a light at the end of the tunnel. At that moment, I looked down the hall. The door, it was dark in there. The door had a glass in there, a little window. And it was just this light glowing at the end of the... And God said, I'll get you there. And I gave you a special gift. And I'm like, in my mind, he told me, give me a special gift. I just got beat up, so I'm all stomped out and out of breath. Maybe delusion. I'm hallucinating. There's another part that I'm not sharing that I'm not going to share until later when it's time. But really, I thought maybe I'm losing it. I'm, because I just got beat up. I'm kind of, mind's all jumbled. But then he said, I'm giving you a special gift. Use it for me. And I look at my bunk. I'm on it, and it's right here, and I look, and there's a bunch of wet letters. And the top letter was a letter from my grandmother. Now, I can't say this for sure is the letter that she said this in, but I remember in one of the letters, she said, "You write the most beautiful letters. You could be a writer." And at that moment, I knew that's the gift. And literally right then, it was just like, bang. And I looked at my bunk, or my little desk in the hole, and I had like 12 books up there. And I was, a voracious reader. So I read probably 3 books a week, novels. And at that moment, I thought it, and I looked at all those big name authors, famous authors, John Grisham, Sidney Sheldon, Tom Clancy, on and on and on. Some of my favorites, Robert Ludlum. And I remember thinking at that moment, every time I read one of those books, it got to where I thought to myself, if I would have wrote this, I could have done better. There were places where it could have been better. And then I thought, well, that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to start writing novels. And I just knew, man. I knew. God had told me, he gave me this gift. He wanted me to use it, and that he would protect me. No matter what happens, just lean into him, and he'll keep me safe. So I don't know if that's the moment the Holy Spirit came over me. It's possible. But at that moment, I knew I was going to be okay. I knew I didn't have to worry. I had a long ways to go in my faith journey, but I knew I was going to be okay. So I lay down on my bunk and stare at the ceiling, and I began to write books. My first book I wrote was called The Second Chance. In my mind, I'm just writing these, but it's like this perfectly clear montage of images in my mind. And I know I have to actually write them and paint the pictures. Honey? Not my wife at all. I got a kitten making a bunch of noise. So I was able to create these stories in my mind so vividly and clear. And so then another book, and over 14 more months in the hole, I was able to write. This is such a long story. I'm sorry. This is going to be by 4 parts. I was able to write 3 of my 9 novels. I wrote in my brain, in my mind. The book cart would come around a couple times a week. They had a porter. He'd push his cart around. One of the cops would escort him. They'd open up the rock and come down the catwalk in front of your cell. You want books? And they come down there, and the cop would go, Lindblom, want books? Want books? And I remember saying, no, I'm good. And they're like, what? You don't want books? You love books. I see you reading all day, every day. I said, no, man, I'm done reading. I'm writing. He's like, what? I said, I'm writing books. He's like, well, where? You don't even have a pen and a paper. I said, I'm writing them here. He kind of laughed. Sure you are, pal. But what I would do is after I wrote one book in my mind, then I'd take a break for about a month and read the genre that I was now about to immerse myself in. So the next book I read after that was called The Second Chance. It's a Vietnam story, A Rat's Tale, Tale. And it was about Vietnam. So I asked the porter guy, bring me books on war, military. Honey? One of my cats is getting in trouble. And so that's what I did. Now, this is going to be one of the, I'll remember this at 1 hour. This is where things get interesting. Not that they weren't, but. So I get sentenced to 13 to 50 years in prison. I have 3 books written in my mind. I have knowledge that God is going to protect me and get me through this. And he gave me this very rare and unique talent. And keep in mind, I was a violent dude. I was a knucklehead. I acted like an idiot all my life. I always pursued acceptance. And now I'm going to have to go into prison and be the opposite of that. I have to turn the other cheek, be reserved, be quiet, and just not be everything who I was before, which, by the way, was an act. I never wanted to be that guy anyways. I wanted to be like a normal dude where people like you and they're like, oh, I like this guy. He's funny. He's cool. He's charming. He's whatever. Not me. I was just known as a tough kid. I like to fight, beat people up, get in trouble, and sell drugs. That's it. So by the way, I have to go. So I get to prison, 13 to 50 years. And so I don't have any money to buy pens and paper to even write a book. Now, let me flash back really quickly to 8 years before this. I robbed a dude named Joe, who's my boy to this day. He's in my heart. I robbed him of some pounds of weed. I think it was 10. Could have been 8. Could have been whatever it was. But basically, he was a big bodybuilder, but not a tough guy. Not even at all a tough guy. And he would later tell me in an interview that, what he liked about me was that I was a tough guy that, would fight and do it, because he said, you were all the things I wasn't. But he looked like a tough guy. He's a big steroided out monster. But so I knew he was soft and I was a predator. And I was robbing all these drug dealers for money. I'd have them advance me, front me some dough, and then I just wouldn't pay them. And then if they try to get on me about it, I say, and I punch them in the face and tell them, bro, you want to die over this? And of course, I only did it to guys who I knew I could get away with that. There were guys that I thought of doing it to, but they were, if they couldn't fight back and whoop me, they might hire someone to beat me or kill me. So I left them alone. Plus, or it was guys that I didn't like, guys that were cocky and kind of arrogant, just because they're selling 10 pounds a week, they think they're big shots. And then I get it to where they'd front me 20 pounds and say, I'm not paying you, bro. And if they got tough, bam, I just hit them. And then, or just sometimes wouldn't even do that. I'd just be like, I'm not paying you, bro. What are you going to do? You know what I'm saying? Can't whip my ass, so I don't, And I had the connection with the mob and all that, so nobody really wanted to mess with me. But I did it to this dude, Joe. And I remember him bugging me for the money for a couple of weeks. He'd come by, and I'd say, I don't got it, man. And I fronted it out, waiting to get paid, da-da-da. After like 2 weeks, he comes to the house and he says, what's up, man? You're just not going to pay me? Now, in my mind, I justified it by this. He was selling a lot of weed, big, 10, 20, 50 pounds, 100 pounds. So he had tons of money, and he was, so what? If I take 10 pounds of weed from him, it's out of pocket, 6, 8 grand, but it's a lot of money to me, This is when I had a habit. I'd only do this when I was using drugs. I would have never done that if I wasn't using drugs. When you're using drugs, you have a $2,000 a week habit, sorry about your luck, which is, evil and wrong. It's horrible. But, so I just take the weed, and he says, you're not going to pay me? I said, and I get it, man, I get it. And he says, okay. All right, bro. All right, give me a call or whatever when you got the money. And that was that. But here's where it gets really interesting. Fast forward about 4 years. The guy calls me out of the blue. Says, I want to meet you for lunch at Big Boy. I want you to meet my fiance. And I thought it might have been a setup, but I was like, he ain't cut like that. This dude is not a gangster. He knows I am. He's not going to just try to set me up over some weed I stole 4 years ago. And he says, just meet for lunch. I want to talk to you. I want to say goodbye. This is what he said. I'm like, why? He's like, because I'm moving to Chicago. Okay. I was a little nervous when I walked in, looked around. I walk in. He's at a booth sitting with this girl. I sit down with him. He introduced me to this girl. Right away, I don't like her. She was like bossy and ordering him around and kind of belittling him. And I'm like, what? So I tell him, hey, bro, let me talk to you in the bathroom. So we go in the bathroom. I said, bro, if you marry this chick, don't ever call me again, dude. She's a B. She's a straight B. Man, you're better than this, bro. You're a good dude, man. And he's like, well, I know. She's what I need right now, blah, blah. I said, nah, you marry her, man. It's over for me and you. It was already over anyways. So I leave. That's the last time I ever see him. Fast forward about 4 years later, when I get arrested for all these charges, he's living in Chicago. He moved to Chicago because his sister was married to a guy who owned a big business, a head HR firm. And he got a good job there. I didn't know any of this. And so I get a letter from him saying, I remember the words almost exactly. He said, hey, man, I was really sorry to hear about what happened. Ironically, he remembered so much detail regarding me and my life. He said, I know your dad was a drunk and abusive, and I know your family, and I know this. I know you had a hard time, man. But you were a good dude deep down, and da-da-da. But he said, I'm in Chicago now, and I'm married to a girl from the church choir. And I'm a born-again Christian, he tells me. I gave up drugs, haven't done nothing. I got a good job. I got a family. I just had a young son. He's like, and, changed my life. But I still read the Detroit News or whatever paper it was. He said, I still look at the news, because I'm from Detroit. I keep up on what's happening in Detroit. I saw the article in the paper about how they sentenced you all this time in prison. I felt bad, man. I felt really bad. And then the next day on my way to work, this is crazy, man. The web of fate and the butterfly effect is unbelievable. I mean, this is how you know God works. God is there and he's real. And this is what he does, man. He'll blow your mind if you just look at it and think about it and allow him. So I got a letter. In the letter, he says, the next day on my way to work, I was driving and the Holy Spirit came over me and I began to cry, thinking about you. And he said, I've only felt that one time previous in my life, and that's the moment I gave my life to Jesus. I never knew it, I never felt it before. I don't know why, but God is telling me to look out for you. So, is there anything I can do to help you? I don't have a lot of money. You know, I'm still digging myself out of debt. I have a new son. We just bought a house. But if there's anything I can do to help you, just let me know. I'm here for you, bro. This is a dude I robbed 8 years ago. And so I wrote him back and I said, yeah, bro, can you send me a few bucks for pens and paper? I want to start writing novels, writing books. Right away, he sends $30. I order pens and paper. I sit down and spend the next year writing my first book, Second Chance, about two high school football players. It's really incredible story. One ends up in prison, one ends up in NFL. Plot twist. It's a great story. Someday you'll read it or watch it on a movie and everybody goes, oh man, I remember him saying that. So he reads it, and by now he's taking the train to work every day, and he doesn't drive anymore. And he says, bro, this book is so good, man. I can't believe how good this book is. And I was kind of embarrassed because it's sloppy. I didn't have a dictionary, so I spelled a lot of stuff wrong. I had a good grasp of syntax and grammar, but still, it was just sloppy mess. I scratching stuff out, rewriting stuff. And he's like, yeah, I don't even notice that. He said, I'm so into the story, I don't even notice. He's like, it's so good, bro. I can't wait. Like, I'm at work all day thinking about your book. Can't wait to get back on the train so I can read for an hour on my way home. And in the morning, do the same thing. He's like, it's so good, dude. You're so gifted. You're so talented. And I was like, really? Thank you. Guys in prison had read the book because the first draft was a rough draft, took 6 months. Then I rewrote the whole thing, and that was like the pristine draft that I sent to him. So, you know, it's just keep it for me, and we're going to publish them someday. And so guys in prison they love it, man. This book's amazing. I kept hearing, this is the best book I ever read, bro. I can't believe you wrote this. Like, I kept hearing this. How did you end up in prison, bro? Like, you should be running a Hollywood studio or something, bro. This story's mind-blowing. The best book I ever read, and I've read 10,000 books in 20 years in here. It was written by you. You locked down the hall for me. What are you doing here? And I'm like, yeah, I'm a screw up like you, bro. I made some bad decisions. Plus, I didn't even know I had this gift until, like I said, God told me I had the gift. And I started using it. So every year for the next 5 years, I'd send Joe a book that I wrote all year round. And I was in maximum security for like 4.5 years, level 4, not super max, but it's max. It's about 21 and a half hours a day you're locked up. So you get like a 30-minute yard in the morning, 30 in the evening, and 1.5 hour in the afternoon, plus chow. But so I'm locked up all day, 23 hours. I'm in there writing all day and night. Finally got myself a dictionary and a thesaurus or whatever. And he might even have bought them for me. But, and I'm sending him these books, and every one of them, he's going, bro, I can't believe this. I can't believe. By now, I have my manuscript circulating on the rock in whatever prison I'm in. And there are people who are reading it. And they're like, oh, dude, you got to read this book this dude wrote. And then another guy's like, I want to read. Oh, you want another one? I have another one. And he comes back, dude, that's even better than the other one. But no way. So I got, 4 or 5 manuscripts floating around. Everybody's reading them. Everybody's loving them. I'm getting all this positive encouragement, from guys in prison who, by the way, are big readers. Guys in prison, a lot of guys don't even have a TV. They read all day. That's it. That's their outlet. But so they're big readers and they're very critical. And they were just like, whoa. Like, everybody's like, whoa, bro. Like, you're the truth. So I was very appreciative of that, and that was very encouraging. And then this is where things take a turn, man. This is where it gets good. In the 6th year, I just finished writing To Be a King, the book that I have published now, about a mafia family set in Detroit. Now, just to give you an understanding, they were my 6th book. So that means the 5 that I wrote before them, I liked better in my mind. Like all my books the same level of quality. They all have this miraculous plot twist, and they're all very engaging and entertaining. But I have my favorites. And that was my 6th favorite book. I only published it first because I figured I could use my backstory, my background, my family as a way to help sell the book. But it's also what led me to what happened next. So I just finished this book. I sent it to Joe. This is 2009, and my boy Billy Usher, my dog, they were both managing. They started a Facebook page for me because Joe said one day, he came to me and visited me. He said, hey, man, it's a long story, but I basically, Dear John, my ex-girlfriend, who I had been with for 19 and a half years or something. I sensed that she had somebody else in her life. I said, go on with your life. She said, want to be friends? I'm like, no, I don't want to be friends with you if you're with some other dude, so go. And she's like crying. I'm like, whatever, and you ain't the one. If you can't wait, you ain't the one. That's how I felt, and I meant it. And so Joe was hearing me on the phone because I call him about once a month. He's like, man, you don't sound like yourself, bro. Ever since Ramona, you don't sound good, bro. You just sound depressed and sad. And I'm like, what are you going to do, bro? I got 7 years left in prison. I got nothing to look forward to. I got nothing. He's like, you got your books. I'm like, whatever. He goes, you know what? There's this new thing called Facebook. I'm going to start a profile for you, post some pictures and stuff like that. And maybe we can hook you up with some girls from the neighborhood or something like that. And I was like, all right. And I don't even think I had heard of Facebook. It was 2009. I might have heard about it on TV or something. Someone mentioned it, but I didn't know what it was. No idea. Social media was brand new. I had never even sent a text in my life before I went to prison. So he hooks it up. And then my boy Billy and him take control of my Facebook page. And this is what's interesting. They put up some pictures up there of my outdoor stuff. So the same pictures I told you about earlier, I sent some of them to him, because I dried them off and saved them. And I sent them to him. They posted them on there. It was pretty cool. But he said, my name on my profile said, I'm currently incarcerated, serving a 13 to 50 year prison sentence. I write novels. What was my pastime? I wrote it. So I was like, my pastimes are long trysts in the shower, wink, and writing novels. I'm currently working on my 6th novel. And also, more importantly, I'm a Christian. So I'm a Christian in prison, serving 13, 50 years, and joked about the prison and the shower thing. So Billy, who's my dog, I sent him some samples because I knew he liked the mafia thing. And here's how I knew. Because he told me on the phone, he'd say, dude, I play Mafia Wars. It's huge. This game called Mafia Wars. It's huge. Like, there's millions and millions of people. I'm like, then you might like my next book. So he's like, yeah, send it to me. And I send it to him. He's like, holy crap, bro, this is the truth. He said, I'm going to post some sample chapters of this book, on your Facebook and my Facebook. And then put on there, if anybody wants to give some feedback or anything like that, they can write me. This is how. So I started getting like fan mail from people. And it was the same thing over and over. People are like, dude, you're the next Mario Puzo, bro. And I'm like, you only read 3 chapters, man. You don't even know how the story ends. Wait till you read the whole story. That's when but everybody's like, dude, you're the next Mario Puzo. I distinctly remember once saying I've read all 8 of Mario Puzo's books, and none of them had kept me as enraptured as these 3 chapters over and over and over. So I'm getting like, it got to where I was getting like, 10 of these fan mails a week, which is cool. Heck yeah, I'm excited. And it got so much to where that a cop goes to hand me a stack of them because they print them out because it's called JPay. It's a prison email. But the mailroom prints them out, folds them in half, and slips them under your door. So the guy kept sending me all these things, and he goes, what is all this stuff? And I go, cocky and douchebaggy. I'm like, fan mail, bro. I got my fans. Fan mail's for what? It's like, my books. He's like, you write books? I'm like, yeah. And he kind of, and he walks away. 2 days later, I get called up to the inspector warden's office, and it's this gay black dude. And he said, I thought it was for a job. I think I didn't want a job, but writing was my job. Billy, and by this point, Billy and my boys are supporting me, paying me not to work. They want to give me as like a secretary job or something for the warden. I'm like, I don't want that. And it pays $30 a month. I'd rather be working on my book. So I'm going in there like, hey, sorry, I don't want a job. And he goes, sit down. It's a very effeminate dude. I sit down. What's up? He goes, he has these things. He says, what are these? I'm like, band letters. He's like, you got a book? I said, how do they find it? I said, on Facebook. He's like, you're not allowed to have a Facebook. I said, I'm not? Is there a law or a policy in the DOC that says an inmate can't have a Facebook? And he goes, how many years you got left? I'm like, 5.5 years or 6.5, whatever it was, 6.5 years. He goes, do you plan to go home when you see the parole board? I said, yeah. He said, then you need to stop it. And I'm like, well, until you can provide me with a policy or a law and he said, you're not able to profit from, your crimes. I'm like, these are fiction novels that have nothing to do with my crimes. They're just fiction. And he goes, you think you're better than everyone because you write books? I said, no, but I think I'm using my time wiselier than most guys, you know what I'm saying, by trying to create a future for myself so when I get out, I have something to go home to. He says, well, you need to stop. You need to stop. No more of this. I said, all right, bro, well, show me the policy, then I'll get back to you. I stood up and I left. And 2 days later, they rode me 14 hours north to the worst prison in Michigan and the second most violent prison in the United States at the time, Kinross Correctional Facility. They threw me over the bridge, man. They were like, no, man, they're going to put you in the terror dome, bro. And there's interesting things because I remember another story. I don't want to jump too forward, but anyways, it was around all this time is when I get a letter from a random girl on Facebook named Mervet Joma, and she had read the sample chapters of my book, and she was a new Christian. She was raised Muslim, and recently, in the last 2 years, became a Christian, and was pretty new in her faith and her walk. But she gave her life to Christ. But it wasn't about that yet, so much so. But she had read those sample chapters, and she wrote me a letter and said, hey, you probably won't remember me, but we grew up in the same neighborhood, went to school together. She's like, I was kind of a nerd, and because I was raised in this really strict Muslim house, I couldn't hang out or go to parties and do extracurricular activities, nothing like that. So you probably wouldn't remember me. She's like, I vaguely remember you. I don't have any distinct memories of you physically, but I remember hearing your name and rumors and things like that. All I remember is that you were a bad guy. You like to fight. You're a drug dealer. I think she mentioned mafia associate, family associate with mafia. I can't remember. But I got a kitten that's going into heat. But here's the crazy part. You try to understand this. By the way, this girl, this is unbelievable, remarkable stuff. This is the stuff that people can't believe or won't believe or can't wrap their mind around. But this girl, she was a year younger than me. Now, when I was in 8th grade, my first time in 8th grade, I failed, and they held me back. So that was her first time in 8th grade, was the same year. Now, this whole class, 8th grade class, was about 100 kids. And all the classrooms and lockers were all in one hallway that was about 100 feet long. That's it. So, we had classes around the school, but the main, English, math, science, history were all in one hall. And it's just one hall, 100 kids. You got to pass each other all day, every day. I have no recollection of this girl at all. Not only that, but she was my type. I like the kind of quiet, nerdy girls who are they're cute, but you don't they don't wear a lot of makeup and do their hair and all that so much. But you could tell they're she'd be a cutie if she just put herself together. But she's kind of a nerd and book nerd, and nobody noticed. I did. That was the type of girl I would always look for. And I hit on these girls when they were 7th, 8th grade, and then high school they're explode, boom to life, and super popular and the hottest chick in the school. She was one of those girls. She was absolutely gorgeous at that time in 8th grade. Blue eyes, half Lebanese. Her eyes are so blue that they don't look real. You think they're contacts. She's crystally bright blue like a sky. I never saw her, and she never saw me, man. Somebody gave her a picture that I was in, And it was like all these kids in my science class and everyone, and I was kind of in the front row wearing a fur coat, which was a nanny goat, called a nanny goat. It was like popular for drug dealers and rappers and stuff. And I was a drug dealer, and I had a big gold chain, this nanny goat, and I'm like, what? In the front. She's like, I recognize every single person in that picture except you. Like I did, you know. And actually, it was a good picture because I wasn't photogenic and I wasn't a good-looking kid when I was young. I was gangly. I didn't think I was good-looking at all. But that particular picture, I looked halfway handsome in it. So, but she don't have any recollection of me whatsoever. By the way, that year she was kind of coming into her puberty, and because her parents wouldn't let her go out and do anything and like have any friends over, couldn't use the phone, yada yada. She kind of rebelled by not doing anything in school. She failed. Her first time in 8th grade, which was my second time in 8th grade, she was held back. We were probably the only two people in the school in that era to fail 8th grade, the two of us. When I failed 8th grade, it put me in direct contact with her an entire year. I had to pass her in the hallway hundreds and hundreds of times. And she was my type. Oh, by the way, I got to tell you. And I was her type. She was rebellious at the time. She loved rap. She watched Yo and TV Raps when her dad wasn't home. She'd watch it. She was into the Bad Boy. She loved Troop. Troop was a brand of clothes and like leather jackets back then that were like super popular, but they're famous for people getting killed over them robbing them. And I had two of them. And I wore my Troop jackets every day. I had a big gold chain like a rapper. I was a bad boy, man. I was the bad boy. I'm the only kid in the school who would pull up to school with a moped. I had a brand new black moped pimped out with a mink stole, seat cover, fuzzbuster, stereo. I'm the only kid. I could park it at the bike rack. I'm like, what's up? Get up in a modern day equivalent, like a $900 jacket, fat gold chain. And I walk it up, and of course, everybody, all the teachers and the principals, and they all knew I was a drug dealer, but they didn't prove it. They'd search me all the time. And one time they found a knife on me, but I was just saying it was the size where they said you can't bring it to school anymore. I said, protection. I got a $900 coat. The coat was like $350, but the equivalent of $900. So I was the bad boy type that she was after. And again, I was kind of starting to come into my own like puberty and handsomeness a little bit. She never saw me, man. Never noticed me. Never. So basically, what I'm getting at is God arranged for us to be invisible to each other for a year. Why? Because he had bigger plans. It would have ruined it. I would have ruined it. If I would have saw her, I would have tried to get with her. Maybe I would have, maybe not. But I would have ruined it for her. I mean, I would have ruined it. So God made us invisible to each other, which is incredible, man. We probably had classes together. But, every day at lunch, every day at gym, every day on the recess, everything. She's right there, my type. And I'm right there, her type. And we're literally together all day. Man, if I would have saw her, because I seen the pictures, man. She was gorgeous, beautiful. And she was like that little wholesome, nerdy kind, too. Which would have been, I would have been like, what's up, girl? What's up, yeah? I didn't care what people thought. I hit on the nerdy girls all the time. I mean, the girls just plain Janes, but I could see if they had some makeup and some dress and, carried themselves right, they'd be hot. Maria was that girl. But God said, nope, I'm not going to let you see or know each other. Not yet. Bigger plans. So fast forward to when I'm in prison and Joe posts sample chapters of To Be a King on my Facebook. She reads them. Lo and behold, she's working for a publisher in New York. And she says, listen, I see that you're writing books in there, and I read some sample chapters. Actually, the first thing was, this was her first thing. She wrote me and said, hey, I see you're a Christian, and I'm a new Christian, and you're in there writing books. Well, I work for a publisher. So maybe, we could do a Bible study or something. Because she was thinking about trying to get into prison ministry with going in the prison, but she was super intimidated about going in front of prisoners and convicts. So she thought, well, maybe this would be a good door opening. This guy from the neighborhood who was just a scumbag, drug dealing lunatic who liked to fight, you can do a Bible study together, whatever. I said, yeah. In the meantime, I had Billy or Joe send her the sample chapters of the book. I think they were posted and she read them. And then she read them and she says, wow, I'm really impressed by your sample chat. She says, I've been working in publishing for about 10 years now. Right now I'm working in academic publishing, but I have friends in departments that work in commercial fiction. If your book's any good, maybe I can help you get it published, at least, and get help. And of course I'm like, praise Jesus, thank you. We wouldn't even go to the odds of that. This girl from my neighborhood who I never knew now reaches out to me and says, I work for a publisher in New York and they're going to help you get published. I was like, hallelujah. This is my 6th book. So she's asking for the full manuscript because she just read like 4 sample chapters. Now I'm talking to my boy Eli, who was my business partner at the time. He was my dog at the time. I said, would you send her the full manuscript? Can you turn it into a PDF and send it to her? And he's like, I strongly advise against this, Al. She could steal it. She could publish it. No. I said, no, bro, just send it to her. Relax. She's not a scam. She's a little Christian girl. At the time, I think she was 34 years old. And I was 35. Whatever it was. Something like that. I don't know. 34, 5, 6, something like that. Let me see. 43. I was 46. 36. So she was 35. Yeah. So eventually I tell him, hey, bro, send the freaking, turn it into a PDF and send it to her, bro. Email it to her. He's like, all right, man, but I'm telling her, let it go, bro. So he sends it to her, but she gets through, she starts reading it and she blows through. So the whole manuscript was both volumes. It was put together. Originally it was one book, 1,100 pages. Just how long it had to be to tell the story that needed to be told. But it did have a perfect break point for, not perfect, because you always want a resolution. Theoretically, you always want a resolution to a book or a story, but there's no way you can't publish a 1,100 page book. So I broke it in half. But anyway, she reads like 3/4 of it, and then there's like 10 chapters missing. And then it starts up. And so she sends me a JPEG. It's an email. She says, yeah, I'm reading a book. It's amazing. I can't believe it. I'm into it. I love it. It's amazing. But it's missing 10 chapters. So I get on the phone and I call my boy Eli. I said, bro, what are you doing, man? Send those 10 chapters. He's like, well, I don't think it's good. Bro, stop. Listen, who's the boss? You? And in regards to this, who's the boss? Me? All right. Send her the 10 chapters, bro. All right, man. I don't think, whatever. So I'm like, I don't even see my buck. I don't see the rack on my buck. Yeah. So he sends it to her. A couple days, like a day later, I get a JPEG from her. And she says, I am blown away by this book. I cannot believe how well it's written and how great the story was. Unbelievable. She says, when it ended, I was in tears and I was broken up the whole day. Her friend came over, her roommate came over and came home and she was on the floor. She told me, when I'm upset or something's on my mind, I clean. So she's like, I'm on the floor scrubbing the kitchen floor. My roommate walks in and goes, what's your problem? What's going on with you? She's like, oh, nothing, this book. She's like, I was crushed. I was broken. I was devastated. I was in tears. I cried for hours at the end of your book. So I knew her perception of the ending was off. It was not, because I leave it so it's open, literally an open book ending. So you can perceive the ending one of multiple ways, one of two ways. Either the character is dead or there'll be another volume. You don't know. But so after she tells me this in the JPEG, she's like, congratulating me on lauding me with, praise for the book. I call Eli on the phone and say, hey, bro, do me a favor, man. Text that girl right now. Yeah, I barely knew the girl. Text that girl right now and just say this. How do you know he's dead? He's like, why? What's that? I said, because he hadn't read the book, but his mother-in-law did. His mother-in-law read the book and she came back to him like the following weekend. He gave it to her and went to dinner the following week. And she's first thing out of her mouth, she goes, bro, your boy's going to be famous from this book, bro. It's the best book I ever read. She's like, your boy. And she's like, and he's like, dude, she don't even read that type of books. And she reads this or that or romance. She's like, dude, she told me, his exact words were, dude, she was glowing. Like, a woman when she's pregnant and she's glowing. That's what she was. She wouldn't shut up about your book. That's when he said, I'm committed to helping you get this book published and starting like using this to launch make movies or whatever. So he started really help me, and so but he didn't read it because he's not a reader. So I said, text her, how do you know he's dead? And he says, well, why? What does that mean? I said, bro, just text to her right now. He's like, all right, hold on. So he's like, he could text her while I'm on the phone. He texted her, and he says, how do you know when she's dead? And then she comes back, like, all capitalized, screaming, oh, my God, tell him he just made my day. I can't believe it. Oh, my God, how did I not know? Blah, 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 blah. And she was super, super excited. So she gets to send me a letter. She says, I love books. They've been my life since I was a kid. By age 4, I read the entire series of Little House on the Prairie. I read every book in my library as a kid because my dad was abusive. He beat me. She's the eldest of 6 daughters, right? The father hated girls. All he wanted was a son, but he kept getting daughters. The oldest one was my girl, Mervette, right? Her name is Maria. Or her name was Mervette, but now we call her Maria. And so he made her like Cinderella. He beat her up, make her clean, cook, laundry, everything. She couldn't come home, like straight from school at home, cook, clean, and babysit. That's it. She never had any life. She was abused. And he was physically abusive. He'd slap her around, punch on her. And anyways, so her mother would take her to the library and she'd get books. She'd get as many as they get. If you check out 10 books, I got 10 books. I would read them all in a week. And I did that until I read every book in the library, and then I did it again. I repeat it. So this is somebody who loves books. She worked at the bookstore in high school. Keep this in mind. She worked at the bookstore in high school, which that's a whole nother irony because I used to go into that bookstore all the time. I can't believe I didn't see her in there. Because it was right next to my gym. When I leave working out, I'll go into the bookstore and buy a couple used books that I like to read. And never saw her. So she was, obsessed with books, loved books, and loved reading, writing, all of it. And so she would say, your book is in the top 3 best books I've ever read. But she would later take that back about 6 months later and say, I didn't want to blow up your head or think that I was like fluffing you or whatever, but your book was the best book I've ever read. The first, number 1, best book. And I've read every big offer. I read thousands. I think she said, like, hypothetically, I've read 10,000 books in my life. It's been reading since I was 4. It's my passion. So she called me. She said my book's the best book she ever read. That was very exciting. It meant a lot, held a lot of weight. So she said, I'm going to help you get this book published. So I said, awesome. And we were start writing back and forth. And we discovered, I think, that like if you start making money from publishing a book while you're in prison and they find out about it, they'll keep the money and make you pay for your time in prison, like up to like $35,000 a year. So we agreed, like, what's the point of trying to publish the books while I'm in prison? And by the way, she read them all, the whole 1,100 pages in 3 days, whole thing, 3 days, on her phone or her iPad. She's scrolling through this phone. She's like, bro, I was in the grocery line and somebody said, I don't know what you're reading, but you're into it. She's like, yeah, it's this book I'm reading. In fact, she got her windshield fixed and they said, your windshield will be fixed in 45 minutes. You can wait in the waiting room. She's like, three hours later, the place is closing. They come in and say, ma'am, what are you doing? And she's like, oh, I'm waiting for the thing. She's like, your car's been done for 2 hours, man. We're closing. You got to go. She was in there reading. So anyways, she said, I'm going to help you get this book published, but it's not going to, we shouldn't do it while you're in there because, they're just going to take the money if you start making money. So I'm like, all right, cool. So I said, I'm just going to keep writing. I'm starting my 7th novel now, which was I think it was The Lion Chaser, which is, The Lion Chaser was my Atlas Shrugged type of book. So her and I become pen pals, and the rest is history, right? Slowly over the next 6, 8, 9 months, we fall in love through a series of hundreds of letters. Literally. We have them still upstairs, most of them. We lost some. The cops threw some out. But we have hundreds of letters, and it was just the 2 of us writing back and forth, every day, all day. I put that 7th book on hold. I was 70% done with it. And then I just set it aside and wrote her letters day and night for like 9 months, day and night. And what happens is when you're writing, you can really pause and take your time to articulate your thoughts, and you can use more charm and wit. And I was trying to impress her, but not trying to get her. So that's the thing. That's the irony is I had no romantic interest. Being perfectly honest, she was the first girl I ever didn't try to mac on. Like I wasn't trying. Like what's the point, bro? I'm a loser in prison. I got 6.5 years left in prison. Why would I try to like be slick and put the mac down on some chick, who's got her life together? She's making $90,000, $100,000 a year as an executive for a publisher. It's just a joke, bro. I'm just going to be me. I'm just going to be me. That's it. Honest, everything honest. Open book, be just vulnerable and whatever. I mean, what I care, bro. It's not like, I have never met the chick. So as we start writing, she's now telling me her story about her father and her upbringing and her struggles and things like that. And we're going back. Then we discovered pretty quickly that we both love the outdoors. She loves hiking and like camping and all these things. And she tells me why. Her whole story is remarkable too, because her high school boyfriend would take her to his cabin up north in the woods. And when she did it, she'd never been out in the woods, never walked in the woods, never saw nature, nothing. She grew up in the city, and that's all she ever seen. And then he took her up there, and she was exposed to this whole new world. And she was like, wow, this is beautiful, this is amazing. And then she developed this love for the outdoors and hiking and animals and whatever. And I'm like, yeah, that's me. Because then I told her, when I plan to get out, I'm going to go live up north by my dad, man, out in the woods. I want to be away from people. I just want to go fishing and camping and hiking and, just be the hell away from everybody, man. And she's like, oh my God, it sounds like a dream to me. And I'm like, yeah, that's the dream. And I'm like, hopefully I can publish my books, make a little money, and make this happen. And then we slowly got closer and closer and closer until some subtle, flirtatious innuendos started to appear in our writing. And they were funny and witty. And then they got a little more witty and funny. Then they got a little more, like, I don't say graphic, but a little more, intimate. And then one day she tells me she had a dream about me, and it was an erotic dream. Uh-oh. So I'm like, that's not good. So a few days later, I wrote her a letter and said, listen, all the little flirting and innuendos, although they are harmless and very, adolescent for the most part, because we're Christians, we were doing Bible study. So we'd do a Bible study every week too. And we'd work on that throughout the week, but usually every Sunday we'd send it to each other and do it. But all the other letters was just personal. I mean, I'm writing her like 50 pages a week, and she's writing me 50 pages a week or more. One time when I was in the hole, got a 70-page letter from her. 70 from her. And I think it was my birthday letter. But anyways, I wrote a letter and said, listen, this got to stop, man. This whole flirting, and it's funny. I said the whole, innuendos, although they're cute and funny and witty and, harmless, we don't want to go in that direction. We're both Christians. I got 6.5 years left in prison. You have a life. You're a serious, businesswoman, whatever. I don't want to, go down that path. So I said, we need to draw a line, a painted line. And it's funny because that title will come back in the future. You'll remember it. I said, we need to draw a line, a painted line, and not cross it. And she wrote me back right away and said, I agree. Same thing. You're right. And then of course, like one letter later, you're in your wordsmith and you're playing with words, and you get to a point where you say something that has like context. If you use it as an innuendo, a little funny, and you're like, that's who I am. I'm funny. And you say another little flirt, and then she wrote back and said her own little flirt, and another one, and this goes back and forth for about a month till it gets even more like not graphic, but it's getting towards graphic, right? Sure. And so one day she says to me, I think you already know this, but I'm just going to come right out and say it. I'm in love with you. And what do you think about that? And I was like, well, it's kind of ironic. I'm in love with you. So what now? And I said, I have 7 years left. She says, I wouldn't care if you had 20 years left. I believe you're worth it. I'd wait. So I wrote her back and said, can you honestly wait faithfully for just me? And she says, yeah. I said, then move up north and get a house in the middle of nowhere in the woods, close to my dad, within like an hour of my dad, in the middle of nowhere, by yourself. Move up there. He says, done. So she moved up into the middle of nowhere, 5 hours from her hometown, and got out in the middle of the woods, and she did it. She waited. We still continued to write each other, probably 30, 40 pages a week. I started writing my next novel, and then I wrote my ninth novel in prison, which was Snowman Chronicles, which I'm getting ready to publish. And she waited like a G. So this is another interesting twist.